looking at first of all, what you think the top media story of the year is and how it led to major protests across this country, and if you think the media fanned the flames.
Well, I think the top media story to me began when a Daily News photographer named Ken Murray was driving home in Jersey, and he heard on the police scanner level 1 mobilization, but they didn't say why.
In Staten Island.
In Staten Island. And so he knew they don't say why, probably a cop was involved, and he drove right to Staten Island and arrived at the scene where Eric Garner had just died. And there's a kid standing there who had taken a video. And Kenny got the video, and the next thing you know, the Daily News put it up. And that's old media smarts becomes new media testament, I guess you'd call it, and the result was, you know, the city got upended.
Do you think that the media covering the protests in Ferguson and across this nation after the non-indictment of the officer in the Eric Garner case fanned the flames, or just told the story? I'm
not sure they fanned the flames, but the one thing I think that was missing, and I'm a guilty party too, is noting the relative size of the protests. I mean, these weren't tens and hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, you had a climate change demonstration in Manhattan.
Right, all the way down to Wall Street.
A couple 100,000 people, as far as you could see, was people.
And it wasn't covered as much. We covered it here, but it wasn't covered as much.
But if you looked at Ferguson and in New York, you would think that it was crowds like that, and it really wasn't.
Yeah, a good point. Terrence, what do you think? You're a journalism professor. Do you agree?
Well, I mean, I think that there's been no perspective when it comes to these protests. And once again, I've been in the media for 40 years, and I hate to say it, but we will over-sensationalize anything. And I'll give you a microcosm. Just happened the last couple of days. Christmas Day in Oakland, California, there was a big deal made of the fact that you had a bunch of looters and people taking ornaments off Christmas trees and damaging property. And then the next day, yesterday, across the bay in San Francisco, where I used to live for 5 years, you had more violence that took place. Well, guess what? You're talking about 100 or so people. And contrast that with the demonstration, the protest that took place a couple of weeks ago in New York, 25,000 people. And the only incident that anybody could discover was on the Brooklyn Bridge, and that just got played out over and over again. In other words, we have a tendency, and the media does this because this is what the public wants, to take the little things and just small groups and make them big if it's exciting. But again, if you look at these protests in totality, they've actually been very, very peaceful, but you would never know it by watching and following the media.